My name is Marjorie, and they say family protects you. My family, they erased me. They did it in silence, with speeches, and in photo slideshows where my face was replaced by my sister's. At a party for my parents, I was escorted out in the rain. Like a trespasser, I had no seat at the table, no name on the screen. Looking up from the driveway, soaked and humiliated, I saw my mother watching from the window, doing nothing. But what they forgot was whose name was on the deed to the mansion. Why would a family treat one of their own like a ghost? And what happened when I decided to walk back in through the front door? The sunlight that day felt dishonest, too bright, too cheerful. Savannah has a way of dressing up pain in soft spring gold, making you think things are gentler than they are. I arrived alone. The gates of the Dellin estate were open, but it didn't feel like a welcome. The wrought iron seemed to glare, not shine, and our family crest looked as foreign as a stranger's name etched in marble. Nobody came out to greet me. I lingered in the driveway, stepping out of my car slowly, half expecting someone to wave me in. Nothing. The gardeners pretended not to notice. One of the staff gave me a tight-lipped nod that stopped short of recognition. I wasn't surprised, but it still felt like a familiar slap. I adjusted my dress, smoothing the front the way women do when they're trying not to fall apart. Beige, safe, polite, like I was still trying to be the version of myself they might accept. Inside the courtyard, the music was light and string-heavy, another layer of pretense. I walked toward the check-in table. A young woman with glossy lips and a magnolia-shaped name badge was greeting guests. When I approached, she didn't look up right away. "Hi," I said. "I'm Marjorie Dellin." She glanced at me, then down at her clipboard, her fingers tapping. "I don't see that name here. Are you with the catering staff or an assistant to a guest?" Perhaps the words didn't sting as much as they would have a decade ago. Now they just felt heavy, expected. "No, I'm family," I said, my voice steady. Marjorie, youngest daughter of Harland and Eleanor. Her eyes widened slightly, a smile of awkward apology on her face. "Right, of course. My apologies, please. Go right in." She didn't offer a name tag. I walked past the table and into the ballroom, careful not to let the ache in my chest show. I'd learned long ago how to carry invisibility like it was a tailored suit. The celebration was already in full swing. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter curled around the chandeliers, and the scent of old money, perfumed and rehearsed, hung in the air. My siblings were at the head table. Vera, always the center, was smiling like she was born for the spotlight. She stood as I entered, raising a flute of champagne. "To family," she said, "to legacy." To the people who carry this name with pride, the applause was loud and long. I clapped, too, because that's what you do, even when you know you're not included in the toast. A slideshow flickered onto screens along the walls. Childhood photos, grainy Polaroids, Christmas mornings Vera at a piano recital, Benedict at football games, Callista in her prom dress. I waited for mine. None came. I sat back in my chair, my hands still, fingers locked. I wasn't angry yet. I was taking inventory. How many times can a family forget you before you start to wonder if you were ever real to them in the first place? A woman I didn't recognize approached me near the refreshment table. Her dress was too tight for her age, her eyes too sharp for casual conversation. "You look familiar," she said. "Are you the caterer's daughter?" I turned slowly, taking a moment. "No," I said calmly. "I'm Vera's sister." Her cheeks flushed. "Oh, I'm sorry. You just look so. I mean, never mind." She laughed nervously and excused herself. I didn't need her apology. I needed air. I stepped outside onto the stone terrace. The afternoon sun was setting, casting long shadows. For a moment, I just stood there, letting the warmth settle into my bones. This wasn't the first time I'd been erased, but today it felt louder, more deliberate. The omissions weren't accidental, they were designed. I thought about the years I'd kept my distance, not because I didn't care, but because I was tired of fighting for a place that was never freely given. But not today. I had let them write the story for too long. Let them carve my face out of the family tree and frame it with silence. But I knew something they didn't. This wasn't just another insult. It was the page before the chapter 1 would write myself. And in that chapter, I wouldn't be quiet. I wouldn't be graceful. I'd be honest. Let them drink their champagne. Let them pose for the cameras and bask in the fantasy they built. The storm was coming. And for once, I wasn't going to stand in the rain without speaking. I stayed outside, letting the hush of the garden give me something the ballroom never did, space. When I finally walked back in, the lights seemed harsher, the smiles more brittle. The program was shifting to speeches. I found my seat again. Third row from the front, far enough to be unnoticed, close enough to be uncomfortable. Then Vera stood. The room adjusted to her as if she had gravity. She was made for rooms like this. Her voice was practiced, her posture perfect. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her tone warm but clipped. "It's no small thing. To gather in celebration of legacy, of what's been built, what's been sacrificed." She glanced at Benedict and Callista, her eyes skipping over me without a pause. As the eldest daughter, I've had the privilege of watching our family grow, of holding things together when times got uncertain. A few heads nodded. Some of us have carried more than others. That's the nature of families, isn't it? We all play our parts. Some stay, some float in and out. There it was again, sharper this time. The floating one, the absent one. The not quite Dellen daughter. Polite laughter followed. A few eyes flicked toward me, then quickly away. I didn't move. My hands were folded in my lap, but my fingertips dug crescents into my palms. If I bled, I wanted it to be private. When the applause died down, a soft clinking drew attention to the screen behind Vera. The first slide of a photo montage faded in. My father in his younger years, standing proudly beside Vera. Another photo followed Callista at her college. Graduation, then Benedict holding his newborn son. I waited, and then it came, an image from 10 years ago. My father, recovering from heart surgery, lying weakly in his chair. A young woman knelt beside him, reading from a book. It was me. But the caption read, "Vera bringing dad comfort during recovery." I stared, not in shock, but because I was watching my history be rewritten right in front of my eyes. Cropped, labeled, claimed. No one else flinched. Why would they? The lie was tucked beneath a polished smile. I felt something crack, not loudly, but deeply. A tap on my arm broke my focus. A tiny voice. "Excuse me, are you the babysitter?" I looked down. Callista's daughter, maybe 5 or 6, blinked up at me. I smiled. "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "I'm your Aunt Marjorie." She looked confused, then wandered back toward the desserts. I caught Callista watching from across the room. Her face was unreadable, but she didn't come over. And Eleanor, my mother, sat still as a statue at the end of the front table. She hadn't looked at me once since I walked in, but I could feel her seeing everything. That was worse than being ignored. When the crowd began to move toward the buffet, I slipped out again, this time to the garden. The light was fading now. The party's noise was a distant murmur. In the quiet, my mind drifted to Christmases where only 3 stockings were hung, to family newsletters that never mentioned me, to the framed photos on the hallway wall where my picture was on a shelf in the laundry room. There are erasures you get used to, but tonight wasn't a simple forgetting. It was a correction. They weren't pretending I didn't matter. They were proving it. Eventually, I heard the rustle of silk dresses behind me. The buffet must have opened. I stood, straightened my shoulders, and walked back toward the house. But instead of returning to my seat, I found an exit leading to a small hallway. I didn't need my coat, but the solitude gave me a moment to breathe. I pulled out my phone. No messages from my family, just one text from Oswald. Asterisk you okay. Asterisk I stared at it. He always knew when to ask and never pushed. I typed back, all good, just a lot of Dylan energy, then deleted it. They had given their speeches. They had told their version of the story. The audience had clapped. But the performance wasn't over. Not yet. A soft knock came at my shoulder. Marjorie, Uncle Griffin said, lowering his voice. Mind stepping into the library for a second? Just a quick thing for the estate records. 5 minutes, tops. 5 minutes. That was how all bad ideas started in this family. Still, I followed him. The library smelled of old leather and newer lies. Benedict was already seated. Vera leaned against the fireplace, arms folded, like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. Oh, hey, sis, Benedict said. Glad you could stop by. I wasn't given a choice, I said, not smiling. Griffin opened a folder. We're just trying to get some clarity for the future of the estate. Make things cleaner. And what does this clarity cost me? I asked. Vera stepped forward, smiling. Nothing. It's just a formality. You're not really involved in managing the estate, and since you built your life elsewhere, ... double quotes, she trailed off. Griffin slid the folder toward me. It's a voluntary transfer of oversight. Symbolic, really. Just keeps things streamlined for. When ... you know, when Dad dies, I've finished for him. I flipped through the pages. The key line was in bold. Asterisk the undersigned Marjorie Dellen relinquishes all current and future rights to Dellen House, including, but not limited to decision-making, inheritance, and representative presence, effective immediately. Asterisk symbolic. I asked, why now? Why today? Benedict shrugged. Everyone's here. Easier to get it done. It's not pressure, Vera added. Just efficiency. They were so casual about it. You've always been a little more independent, Benedict continued. We thought this gives you freedom. You mean the legacy, the PR, the chance to be the Dellen hero. His jaw tightened. I placed the folder back on the table. No, Griffin blinked. No, I repeated. I won't sign it, Marjorie. Don't make this difficult, Vera said. You've always said you didn't want to be involved. I never said I wanted to be erased. The room went still. I walked out without another word. When I returned to the ballroom, the mood had shifted again. A new slideshow, the Dellen siblings, through the years, had begun. The first few photos were expected. Baby Vera, Benedict in a costume, Callista at her debutante ball. Then came a black and white photo I hadn't seen in years. My father sat in an armchair after surgery. I was kneeling beside him, reading aloud, his hand resting on mine. But the caption read, Vera comforting Dad during recovery. I didn't flinch. This time, it wasn't a misprint, it was a replacement. They'd taken my image and given it to someone else. Another photo followed me organizing a silent auction table at a fundraiser. The caption, Callista's tireless work behind the scenes. They weren't editing me out, they were repurposing me. Vera passed nearby with a glass of wine, pretending not to notice me, but I caught the flick of her eyes toward the screen, then toward me. She knew exactly what she had done. I didn't stop her. This wasn't a fight I could win with confrontation. It was about narrative control, and for years, I had let them own the story. But not anymore. The ballroom was buzzing again. Servers brought out a new round of hors d'oeuvres. Then my father stood. Harlan Dellen was not a man who spoke often, but tonight he lingered at the podium. I want to thank everyone, he began, his voice deeper than usual. Tonight means more than I can say. It's about roots, history, the people who carry your name. Forward, he looked at Vera. You've stepped up in ways I never expected. You've made the family proud. He praised Benedict's integrity and Callista's kind heart. Then came the pause. Each of our children, he said, slower now, has played a role. some more present than others. The room didn't move. I stared at him, not breathing. He didn't look at me. Some more present than others. 7 words that cut sharper than any direct exclusion. He hadn't forgotten me. He had chosen to exclude me. The screen behind him lit up again. Thank you to our loyal children. 3 names: Vera, Benedict, Callista. That was it. No room for ambiguity. A woman at my table leaned in. Wait, you're not listed. I didn't respond. I stood. I didn't need more sugar. I needed air. But instead of heading for the doors, I walked straight toward Vera. She was laughing with acquaintances. Marjorie, she said, her smile poised like a weapon. Everything all right. I didn't raise my voice. You've had your moment, I said. I'm giving you one last offer, and this now. She tilted her head. And what exactly am I ending? The narrative, I said. This little play you've written where I'm invisible. She laughed softly. Marjorie, you're being dramatic. No, I'm being accurate. What could you possibly do? She asked, her voice tight now. Not much, I said. Just ruin your entire narrative with a single document. The smile vanished from her face. I turned and walked away. There's something about being watched through glass that makes a person feel less human. Standing on the gravel path outside the estate, soaked to the skin, I looked up at that wide window. Vera stood there, motionless, and beside her, my mother. Neither one moved. The rain had started as a drizzle. By the time I reached the end of the walkway, it was a downpour. My dress clung to me. I didn't turn back. I reached for my phone. A dozen missed notifications, nothing from my family. Just a weather alert and a text from Oswald. Asterisk, you okay? Asterisk, I tapped his name. He picked up on the second ring. I'm outside the Dillon estate, I said. They kicked me out. There was a pause. Not shock, just silence. Send me your location, he said. I'm on my way. I leaned against a stone gate pillar, letting the rain run down my face. This wasn't the first time they'd pushed me out, but it was the first time they'd made it official. I closed my eyes. The storm was louder now. A car approached. The passenger side window rolled down. Get in, Oswald said. I slid inside, dripping water onto the leather seats. He pulled off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. They humiliated me, I said finally. Publicly, deliberately, I know, he said. You don't even know what happened. I don't need to. He pulled away from the curb. You didn't deserve that, he said. And they'll regret it. I don't need them to regret it, I replied. I need them to see me, Oswald nodded. Then we'll make them see you. He turned the car around. As the mansion reappeared through the storm, my pulse was steady. They thought they'd broken me, but they forgot who I married and what I had inherited. The silence inside that ballroom wasn't empty, it was loaded. Oswald's coat was still draped around my shoulders, damp but warm. We walked in, and the lights still gleamed as if nothing had happened, but the air had changed. Conversations froze, forks hung in midair. Vera had already turned toward us, one hand frozen around the stem of her champagne glass. It slipped, the stem shattered against the marble floor. Good evening, Oswald said, his voice calm and clear. I believe you've forgotten to honor someone important. He stepped aside, and I walked. I didn't rush. I didn't hesitate. I walked like I was supposed to be there, because I was every single person in that space was about to remember exactly who I was. I stopped just short of the main table. I'm not here to make a scene, I said softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm here to reclaim what's mine, Vera finally spoke. Marjorie, this isn't the time. No, I interrupted. This isn't your time. You've had that. I reached into Oswald's coat and pulled out an envelope. This is a copy of the controlling interest papers for Dillon House, I said, setting it on the event. Manager's table. Transferred to me by Clodagh Braxley in 2008, legally notarized and recorded. The woman blinked. Vera's face was drained of color. I've let my name be erased from your speeches and your slideshows, I said, turning back to the room, but I won't be erased from the property that carries my family's name. Someone whispered, she owns the house. I smiled just a little. Not just the house, the trust, the land. The legacy. Benedict stood, trying to regain control. Marjorie, let's not turn this into something it doesn't need to be. This already is what it is, I said. I've just removed your ability to pretend otherwise. What rules? Vera snapped. The rules that say you can rewrite history and no one will correct you, I said calmly. The rules that say humiliation is a family tradition. The rules that say the quiet sister doesn't get to speak. I walked through the crowd, people parting as I passed. I wasn't leaving in shame. I was walking into my story. The door that once closed behind me now stayed open. And for the first time in decades, I felt seen. I didn't look back. Oswald was waiting just past the entry. He said nothing, simply stepped beside me. I walked to the event manager's table again and set the manila envelope down. These are my documents of ownership, I said, my voice steady. I inherited controlling interest in this estate from my grandmother, Clodagh Braxley. The originals are on file with our family attorney. Behind me, Vera's voice began to rise in objection, but Oswald stepped forward. That envelope, he said, to the room, is legally binding. Any attempt to interfere will be addressed through counsel. Vera went still. Her hands trembled. I've stayed silent through countless dinners and holidays, I said to the crowd. Tonight, I watched my name erased again. And so tonight, I'm reclaiming it. I gestured to the planner. There will be no more edited photos, no more slideshows, where I'm cropped out, mislabeled, or replaced. No more speeches where my father forgets the child who held his hand through recovery. No more invitations where I'm a footnote. Vera's jaw clenched. You're making this personal. It is personal. I replied. It's a family estate, Vera. That's as personal as it gets. The tension in the room had shifted. I walked down the center aisle of the ballroom and out the main doors. No applause followed, but silence did. Outside, the rain had stopped. Across the circular drive, I saw a group of people, the press. A woman I recognized from the local morning show called out, Marjorie Dellon. Is it true your sister had you removed from your own family estate? I didn't flinch. Yes, I said plainly. It's true. Do you have a statement for the public? I looked directly into the camera lens. For a long time, I thought silence meant grace. I said, but there is nothing noble about letting others build their story by tearing down yours. I gave my goodnight and climbed into the car. 2 days later, the headlines were everywhere. Vera's PR contracts dropped her. Her board seat was quietly revoked. Her carefully built house of mirrors had shattered. And I did what I always do when things crack open. I created something. I met with a nonprofit that specialized in supporting women estranged from toxic family systems. I told them my story, and when they asked why I was interested in funding a retreat for survivors, I told them the truth. Because sometimes family doesn't break you in one moment. It breaks you over time, inch by inch, silence by silence, until you forget you're worth anything at all. So I gave them the estate. Not symbolically, legally, I transferred my inheritance into a foundation bearing my grandmother's name. The same woman who, long before anyone else, saw me for who I really was. A woman worth remembering. A woman who doesn't need to ask permission to exist. 2 years is long enough for pain to settle. Not disappear, just settle like sediment in a riverbed. I moved to Tybee Island 6 months after the confrontation. I didn't write letters. I didn't explain myself. Oswald understood before I said a word. He just said, salt air helps, so I went looking for it. I found a pale yellow cottage with a wraparound porch that creaked in the wind. There were no marble floors, no monogrammed hand towels. This house didn't need a name to prove its worth. But in my mind, I named it anyway, Mercy's Edge. The walls inside were painted soft blues and worn whites. Instead of family portraits, I hung thrift store finds and student artwork. Nothing about this house tried to be perfect. Each morning, I brewed my coffee with real cream. I taught art classes for women trying to start again. We weren't broken, we were just tired of being unseen. Oswald came on weekends. He never tried to fix things. When the past came up, he just let it arrive and sit for a while, like weather. Then it passed. One evening, after a spring thunderstorm, someone knocked on the front door. It was a young woman, no older than 20, clutching a large portfolio. "You're Marjorie Dellen?" she asked, her voice trembling. "They referred me here from the foundation. They said if I needed to talk to someone ... double quote, she didn't have to finish the sentence. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in." I gave her a towel and led her to the couch. She smelled of salt and city, of someone who hadn't paused. "In weeks, I heard what you did about the estate," she said. "The way your family treated you. I just didn't think people like you existed." I smiled gently. "Most people don't, until they do." She told me her story piece by piece of being disinherited because she refused to marry the man her father chose, of being erased at dinners, of family photographs where she was replaced with floral arrangements. She didn't weep, she just spoke, like someone trying to prove the story still belonged to her. When she finished, she looked at me with fear. "How did you survive it?" she asked. The question wasn't for inspiration, it was for survival. "You don't survive it," I said softly. "You rebuild around it." She blinked. "The wound stays, but so does the strength. You learn to stop bleeding for people who never even noticed you were cut open." I thought it was just me. "It's never just you," I said. "But it always feels like it." I brought her a mug of chamomile tea with honey. We sat in silence, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full. Eventually, she said, "Thank you," she sighed, stepping back out into the misty evening. I watched her disappear into the fog. Later that night, I sat at my writing desk with a blank page. The window rattled softly. I wrote a letter, not to Vera, not to Eleanor, to me. To the version of myself who once begged to be noticed. "Dear Marjorie," I wrote. "Thank you for not giving them the last word, for walking away, for surviving, for choosing the kind of peace that doesn't come with applause, and for planting something new where they tried to salt the earth." I signed it, folded it, and slipped it into a drawer, not as a goodbye, but as a bookmark. The fire didn't end. Emmy, it illuminated the road. Sometimes closure isn't delivered in a courtroom. Sometimes it looks like a porch light in the rain, a warm cup of tea shared with a stranger, and the sound of your own voice no longer asking for permission. Sometimes justice is simply this: you're still here, and you're finally free. Sometimes the hardest decision isn't standing up to others. It's walking away and never looking back. Marjorie didn't need revenge, she needed peace. And when she chose herself over their approval, that was the real victory.